And action.
Okay, so we're doing this gig in Arizona. The gag is there's an antique garbage truck that needs to get brought into the room. Okay? So we take dimensions of the doorway, we take dimensions of the truck, and we figure, it's going to be kind of tight, but the truck will make it into the room. And this is like a 1920-something garbage truck, right? Truck shows up, they pull the thing off of the carrier truck that it's been delivered on, and I noticed the guy up in the steering cabinet having a really hard time
Turning the wheel?
turning the wheel. No power steering in 1920, right? So the deal is the truck's got to go through one door, make a turn, and go into another door. Sounds pretty simple, right? We get the truck in. This guy cannot turn the wheels enough to get the truck to go through the second door. So we're all thinking, how are we going to get this truck into the room? So one of the janitors from the venue goes, well, let's see, we got some cooking oil here. Hey, Freddie, go get some cooking oil. Throw it on the floor. And I'm like, okay, dude, it's your venue. Okay, fine.
That's an unusual offer, isn't it?
Throw some cooking oil on the floor. So he dumps what looks like probably 10 gallons of cooking oil underneath all of the wheels of the truck, right? And we get the entire crew, I don't know, 40 or 50 guys around the truck.
Push now because they're sliding everywhere.
Yeah.
Like a turntable without one.
And the thing basically just slid like it was on ice. It was amazing.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like that before. I was like, cooking oil? Really? Okay.
Kind of spin around. And then he said, oh shit, it's on the carpet, right?
Yeah. Now what do we do?
I said,
Charge is going to be expensive.
you guys don't have a problem with this cleaning it up or anything, right? No, it's fine. No problem. No problem. But who the fuck cooking oil?
I would have never thought about that.
No, that was one of those deals.
No,
I
they
would
wouldn't
have
allow it. They don't allow anything
got a
anyway.
goddamn jack and jack the truck up.
Yeah.
Well, we were going to put a, what is it, the mobilators? Is that what you call them? The things that you put the cars up on and then just
Oh,
jack
yeah,
them around?
yeah.
Right? The guy's like, nah, we
Yeah,
don't need
those
to do
are-
that. Just throw cooking oil on the floor.
If the floor is flat, those work fine.
Right.
But if the floor has got any bumps or any steps in it, you're dead.
Right.
You know, any
What was the show? They'd use an old garbage truck.
This was Allied Waste. Big garbage company. They wanted to bring this truck in. And we go through all these measurements, making sure the truck and the door, yeah, okay, fine, it'll fit.
Yeah. As we always do, right?
Yep.
And then it gets down to, okay, that didn't work. All well played.
Well, plus
all
the truck's,
plans.
it's got to be running for the steering
Oh, yeah.
to work at all. And even when the truck is running, the
Oh, and
steering's-
it's nice, old.
oh wow.
oh, it was stupid.
What year was it?
20 something maybe?
There
20,
was no
25,
power-
something like that?
No power steering.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been doing shows for a long time now.
Yeah, back in 1925.
Back in 1925, we did this reveal.
We did this garbage show with a donkey and a bucket one time and wheels, wooden wheels. No, we didn't do that. That's way back. That's
That was
way
pretty
too
silly.
old for me, right?
Pretty silly.
Well, we
so,
did that when we had to bring a live horse to the SF Hilton because it was something for Geffen about their new movie that was the Stallion or something like that. So we want the actual stallion. It's an animated movie, but they have this real horse that is going to be their spokesperson for the movie. It's like, okay, we want to bring it in. Well, you know, how are we going to do this? Oh, it's no problem. Well, we're going to have to put plastic down on every surface that the horse could possibly walk on. Because if he shits anywhere, you know, you're going to have to replace all of the carpet.
And they always do. Almost on
And-
cue.
Plastic orama.
So we had plastic-o-rama, and of course in the freight elevator we had to put special cushion padding so that the horse, you know, could walk on it but wouldn't slide around and stuff like that. So we do all of this stuff. Horse comes in, walks around, comes out. Whole thing's maybe 4 minutes. Never shit the entire time.
Of course.
Cost us, I don't know, 20, 30 grand just for...
The best
On the other hand, I did a show in Vegas one time where they had the same thing. They were going to have like the CEO walk in on this big white stallion, right? So you get the whole stage and, you know, like, same thing, plastic, everything. And of course, during this show, you know, everything you don't want to happen happened. you know, the horse came in and something got caught, his hoof got caught on something, so it pulls this down, then they fix that, so then he gets up on stage, and certainly, you know, the CEO's supposed to get off and do this grandiose presentation. Well, just as he starts, right, tail goes up, and just like unloads, and of course now his
commentary about your
So now
company.
his whole program is like, okay, now nobody's gonna listen to me. The funny thing is the horse is shit all over the stage, you know.
Of course.
So
Nice.
timing is
Clean
everything,
up.
right? Timing is
The guy
everything.
with
So
the
he kind
shovel.
of lost the whole oomph of his, you know, of his
Your dramatic
presentation.
moments.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gone.
So the White Knight turned into horse shit.
Yep.
Okay, so
Laboca is also
we
one of the
went
best thunder teams. You always hear Laboca.
There was about 8 of us. Tom Strand was with us. I don't know if he's here. I saw him on the invite list. Yeah. Tom was there, you,
Christina did not come.
and there was a super producer. I remember her, Louise.
Yeah.
Super producer. Anyway, so we went to the bar. We were just wandering around town, but we had a few drinks at that bar with a local guy who earlier in the evening had told us why people hate Americans, which to me was very edifying.
Yeah.
So then we went out and did the things that people hate Americans for, which is wander through the streets being loud and obnoxious. Okay, and then what do you remember happened next?
I remember that we were going down a dark. We were trying to find our way out. We went by the water. The boats were. It was really kind of a cool. These decaying boats and beautiful houses, like painted houses. And then we were trying to find our way home. And we went down this dark alley, and this little girl on a bicycle came out. And she could have been wearing angel wings.
Came out of like a darkness.
Yeah, it was like some like a Wim Wenders film or something. And she came riding on. She said, "Misters, do not go down this alley. You will be beaten. Do not go down this alley." And then
Down the alley.
come on. But we saw later there was like a gang down there, and we kind of skirted around it. And then later someone told us that she effectively had saved us from getting our asses completely kicked in.
It's your Argentinian angel.
It was because the one guy from Buenos Aires basically knew what was going on.
Yeah, and he concurred wholeheartely, is what we call it. And this was either before or after I got mustard in.
Now, no. Then later, you went back to that neighborhood
The little girl
during
tells him to stay
daylight.
away. What does
He's
he
a
do? He
slumdog
goes back.
millionaire.
No, because, I went back in the daytime. But my cab, okay, I'll make this short. My cab got stuck behind a bus that crashed in one of those narrow streets.
As you do.
Blocked the street. I bailed, which was my mistake. I should have stayed there and just kept paying this guy money to sit there in this traffic jam, but I bailed. That's where I made the mistake, because I walked through an area like that where I wasn't supposed to walk through with my starched white shirt and my
Hello, I'm sorry.
Your gigantic camera.
pressed jeans
The
and
target
my
on
brand new
his
Canon
shirt.
camera that I just bought. You know.
Ugly American.
And I had this feeling that something might happen, so I'm on one side, all the houses on the other side of this big avenue, and there's nothing except a field over here. So I took off my backpack while I'm walking, took my camera off my belt, put it in the backpack, put it back on, walked across the street, and within about 5 minutes got mustard in.
And mustard, like literally, they take the packs, right? And just
Well, you're
like,
just walking along, and all of a sudden you feel wetness. And then seconds after you feel wetness, this nice
Wait a
couple.
second, you lost me there.
This
the wetness.
Well, I'll explain. This nice couple comes up after you feel this, and you don't speak the same language, so but you can tell that they're concerned for you. Oh my goodness, what happened? You're wet or something, and you're going, oh my god, yeah, I got like mustard all over me, and it's soaking through.
He's a hot dog.
And they're there to help you, to take your backpack so that you can see really how bad things are. And then they hand that off to the runner, who's like their son.
But you were smart enough not to get that.
Well,
right?
because
Please tell me that.
I knew right away what was going on, and I'm like,
You're right, because they told us about it the night before. Like,
I think we
this
had a
is, don't
briefing.
let this happen to you.
Listen to the
Watch
little girl.
out. Anybody who has a hot dog, walk away.
But it didn't quite end there, because I'm like holding the backpack. No, don't want any help. Don't want any help. And now I'm looking for like an escape route because I'm surrounded. There's like 4.
You know that, yeah, you're being played.
So I walk into a restaurant and I think, well, here, I go in and I probably said something like, yeah, they tried to mustard me out there. And the people are at the doors. that work mustarding me. They're standing at the door of this restaurant. So I go into the bathroom to kind of get my composure a little bit, and I come back out, and they're still standing at the door. So there's not going to be any sympathy for me here, and I'm going to have to walk right by one of these people to get out of there. And that's what I did. I walked by and got in a cab.
Live to tell the tale.
South America's a challenge.
And you know what?
I did show in Rio.
Get mad. I mean, I was annoyed at first, and then later
You didn't reach into your coat and come out and say,
Yeah.
"You want to talk mustard?"
I was the dumb pepper. You know, I
So you were talking about you did a show.
I did a show in Rio a long, long time ago. The money we had to pay to get the gear in, the money you had to pay to get the gear out. The woman I was with had her purse stolen. The silly thing that happened, we went to that fabulous soccer stadium. I think it's the largest in the world.
Sao Paulo?
No, in Rio. And we go in, and look at all these fabulous seats up front. There's rows and rows of seats, and then there's what did I know? And I wasn't, mind you, I wasn't alone, and I was with guys who were sports fans and things. We were a whole group of people. So this is not my first thought that the reason I am sitting on this side of the overhang. Now, mind you, they sell beers this big. And I happened to have an empty seat next to me. And you said you started to feel a little wet. I was like, it's raining.
It's raining here.
Oh my God, they're peeling over the balcony. That's why
why
they
those
have all
seats
the
were
empty seats in
empty.
front of the
That's a good tip to remember.
Yeah. It's like, why are there all these empty seats close to the field? You don't want to be. You want to stay under the overhang.
Dead giveaway.
Yeah.
Dead
I
giveaway.
got to tell you, only because it's a part of our business that we either have likes, dislikes, or they oh not again. And that's the motivational speaker, right? And motivational speaker, and it's always the same thing. It's the age changes, the face changes, but somehow they probably go to motivational speaker school, and they just
totally unique.
They learn the pattern. Hans and I were in Dubai doing a show for NCR, and it was a huge event. It was an international event, and the head of NCR, I think, was he Swedish or something? He was like from Stockholm.
It was ish.
He was, he was one of these, my way or the highway kind
He's
of
a
people.
foreigner.
A foreigner. And they had this motivation. They had lots of stuff. We had dancers, we had singers, we had mind readers, we had that crazy puzzle that weighed 2 tons to put together. And
Sounds like a Cisco show.
we had horses.
We had horses.
Everything
But they had this
everything
motivational
but
speaker, and I guess he's a fairly well-known guy from Chicago. And he got up and he started this whole thing about, you got to take your life and you got to make it yours, and you got to, you got to follow your dream, and come on, give me some more stuff.
Motivational speaker.
And take time for your family.
Take time for your family, and
I don't remember.
Take it one game at a time.
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Be true to yourself.
well, he's up there and he's doing this thing, and I keep getting a runner keeps coming back to me and says, "Get him off of there, Mr. So and So, the head honcho. He doesn't want this on there at all." And how do you suggest I get him off the stage?
Trapdoor.
Hey, by the way, you want to leave?
Confidence monitor. Get off the stage.
And it goes. I mean, we were doing all the standard drills.
How do you motivate a motivational speaker?
To get them off. And
Unmotivated.
He was one of the world's
We'll pay you
most
anyway.
motivational speakers at the time.
he was.
Who was it?
He was a radio guy. I don't remember who he was.
Okay.
But I guess
But
he
I
was a
don't
big.
think we want to give names.
How did you get?
So anyway, Mr. Big just starts walking on stage because he realizes we're not going to do anything, and so kind of does that. Hey, thank you. Shake hand, get him off. And he makes this announcement. I wish I had that. He says, "Nobody tells my employees what to do except for me." And he says this on stage, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" I'm saying that was the first motivational speaker I ever saw go down in flames.
Now, this was really, do you remember late 70s, early 80s? Fred Friendly was doing the well, he was the CBS was doing these. What do you call them? The sophistry. These discussions. No. These were these round tables with these big. Really big ideas.
Focus group things?
They were doing them on PBS. They were these big ideas.
It's like what TED is now.
What would, if you had this, I've never been to TED. If you have this scenario, what's going to happen in the world political and world political thing?
Think tank.
And very, very high-end, very intellectual. So IBM hired him to come and do this at the 100% Club. And so what happened was, and this was a really big deal, and everybody was very impressed, and this was going to be really terrific. And they started bringing up scenarios about ethics in the workplace and putting people on the. So what was happening is you're putting employees on the spot in front of their bosses. And at IBM, that don't happen. And the 100% Club. Those years, there were 15 shows. There were 14. There was 7 on the East Coast, 7 on the West Coast. And we were in Florida. I'm from Florida. We did it once. It was gone.
That's the end of that.
Replaced by the talent show.
But it just made everybody uncomfortable. They just shut it down.
Well, you could just see people in the audience kind of squirming, like, oh my God.
Well, the people on stage were squirming. I mean, this might have been about taking pencils home from the office. What do you think about taking supplies home from the office?
I do it all the time. I think sorry.
And that's not used against
home office.
Where do you think the word comes from? Home office.
But I will say one thing about, most of them, I can't believe they. In fact, we talked to David. David was talking about when he was going to be actor boy again, about maybe becoming a motivational speaker. I said you got to write the book first. But he could do it. He was on the road.
Or just have a blog. That's all you need.
But I will say there was one thing, just the opposite side of this. At some show, we had the guy, the survivor, and the guy who actually walked out when they were ready to die. The Peruvian soccer team.
Nando Parado.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, you listen to guys tell this.
Because where he upstaged the CEO and he will never be back.
No.
Oh, he did?
Really?
But what's your Nando Parado?
No, I'm just saying. I mean, we're talking about motivational, and you listen to this story.
Well, his mother and his sister were on the plane when it crashed, and they died, and his head was as big as a basketball.
For 10, 12 years.
I've never seen him.
And last year on the 100% Club, he did it 5 times, 5 shows.
Same thing every time?
Same thing. You look out, people are crying in the audience. He gets a standing O. But he is who he is. He's really
But you generally know what you're getting when you're hired.
Well, you and I must have worked the same show, and I won't name the client, but a bunch of people went down after that show because there's this guy talking about.
Down.
Oh yeah, there's
Like
this,
in plane crashes?
no. in their job.
I want to do that. There you go. That's the biggest one yet.
Their job responsibility. They didn't get to pick the motivational speaker anymore because he's up there talking about losing his mom and all this kind of stuff, and people are crying. So then the CEO, who will remain unnamed at the moment, gets up there who thinks he just wows every audience he ever works when he works the 4 follow spots in the audience, if you know who I'm talking about. And so he's up there talking about money this and money that, and it was just, he knew it was a bad fit, and immediately had started to roll, like immediately after the show. But you know what? We got one group of people saying, let's hire the best motivational speaker we can get to work with the audience. They did their job.
I like the guy that was at the chicken stores or the egg store.
Stu Leonard. Stu Leonard.
With the rock, you know. The first rule is this, and if you forget the first rule.
Yeah, I think he's in jail for tax evasion.
He is. It's up in Norwalk, Connecticut, and he got in big time trouble.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. There was also this other guy, Herb Cohen, who we loved. Herb was an international negotiator, and he did this thing about, they say, Herb, how how can you negotiate these huge issues and, you know, so many lives and dollars and things are at stake? He says, because I care, but not that much. And so which he follows up with how his staff negotiates his fee as being a guest speaker. And he said, you know, I ended up getting this honorarium, which means there's a lot of honor and very little arium, because my staff cares, but not that much. So I still use the line.
So do I. He was a good one.
I like he was great.
He did all those customer service stories, and then he'd get to the end, and that would be the punchline. You gotta care, but not too much.
Well, I always thought, I have never seen, I thought a great thing for a corporate show would be somebody like a Professor Irwin Corey type, motivation speaker, who starts off,
Derwin Fincher.
Yeah, somebody does it?
Derwin Fincher.
Who starts off, and you got it for about 10, 15 minutes, have the audience totally buying it, and then have it start drifting off.
Yeah.
And then they realize slowly that
it's not making any sense.
Yeah, and I just saw him recently on like Regis and Kelly or something like that, you know, and he just doesn't make any, after a while, it just doesn't make any sense, and you think there's something wrong with him.
He draws you in, and then you're like, wait a second.
I did it with Spidell. Remember Spidell, the wash bands? I did one of those double.
I want to hear this story you have to tell.
So I used to work in the Hilton. I was an engineer and ballroom engineer. And it was a case of yesterday I couldn't spell engineer and today I are one.
Got it.
So Bob Moreland, who some people around here might remember.
Tell it without saying names.
Oh, okay. The names will be deleted to protect the guilty.
What the person's position
So my boss, who shall remain nameless.
I'm sorry. I moved the camera.
Okay.
Take from the top.
Yeah, well, anyway, I used to work at the Hilton in the ballrooms, and the odd thing about the Hilton is stationary engineers do all the tech.
Right.
So every morning after a big show, the chief engineer would call up our boss and ask him, well, how'd it go? And every time it was the same story. Well, nobody died. And so
nobody died.
One night there was a group, a large group, and they had their annual banquet. And the highlight of the annual banquet was all the men over 60 after dinner and several bottles of wine would get up and lock arms and sing French folk songs while dancing the can-can on the edge of the stage. So this one particular night, one gentleman, it was a little too exciting for him. He had a heart attack and he fell off the stage onto the middle of the floor
During the show.
during the can-can.
Holy crap.
And it was a big budget, so they had 3 spotlight operators. So like the banquet captain's on the phone, get the spotlight on, get the spotlight on. We can't see, we got to see what's going on. So all 3 spotlights go over onto the guy. At this point, 1,500 people were not paying attention until 3 spotlights go over there, and they're like waiters are trying to put him on the banquet gurney and take him out to the kitchen. And then like the banquet captain decides, wait a minute, everybody's paying attention now. Ballyhoo, get him off.
Yeah, anything but being focused on the guy.
So they wheel him out through the kitchen and they pronounced him on the way to the hospital. And the next morning,
how'd your show go? Boom. Oh my God. Do you work with Lori and Mike? Or did you? Lori Bolander and Mike Cutter at the Hilton?
I know the name Mike, but I'm not.
Mike usually does the lighting there, and Lori.
Well, go ahead. You just go ahead.
A couple of years ago, I did a car show. It was at the Colorado Convention Center, Denver Convention Center. Now you have to realize, the clients book these venues a year, 2 years out. So, it's been a challenge, it's been fun, it's been exciting, all these things, that you struggle through to do these things. And I'm talking to my contact at the venue, and I said, well, when we drive the cars on stage, and I said, oh, you can't drive the cars on stage. We are 7 days out. Count them, 7. What
this is a show that involves putting cars on the stage.
It's a car show. And that's exactly what I said. It's a car show. And he goes, oh, well, you can push them. I can't push them.
Push them.
He wanted us to push them. This is cars and motorcycles. And I all but lose it. And so, you know, the attempts initially, because you think the client doesn't know, or were they that stupid not to get approval that they could drive the cars? And they were not that stupid. They'd done this before. And we knew that there'd been another motorcycle show in there, and that cars had been run. And we did hoops, all kinds of hoops, and for the fire department. Is your air the concern? Is the quality of the air concerned? There are scrubbers that wash the air every 15 seconds. There is no problem with carbon monoxide. Is it this problem? Is it that problem? We solve that problem. Oh, okay. No, you still can't do it. All right, we solve the next problem. Oh, good. No, you still can't do it. So it finally goes to, I don't remember now if it went to the mayor. I think the mayor was like on the list, but I think it finally went to the chief, the fire chief, the complete head of the department, who realized that, and Denver was doing an enormous push to bring business in. The hotels were sponsoring parts of the show to cover costs. So they knew that they'd never, ever see another motor vehicle show if you cannot drive cars on the stage. They wanted us to put 3-foot concrete barriers in front of the stage. Yeah.
So the cars...
3-foot concrete. So you have to explain to them, it's like, look, a car that is not powered is more dangerous than a car that is not.
Exactly.
You know, it's going to go right over your little concrete barrier and run into the people in the front row.
That's right.
And in the end, we drove our cars and we drove our motorcycles, and we lived happily ever after. The end.
The moral of the story is...
Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
It never happened. But I think the most interesting part of it was...
Now, are we rolling here? I did not want to miss this. This is fucking hilarious.
This is a show that we easily spend weeks on site. I think I had gotten food poisoning. As something happens to everybody, food poisoning, the maid's breaking into your room, I can't sleep, my flight was screwed up, my gear is gone. You've heard them all.
That's it.
And it's a big enough show where you would have, I would call them freshman room producers who
That would be appropriate, yeah.
kind of take control of the room itself. And we all just kind of are slammed around like the train following the engine. And I still refer to the show as Donkeys and Cheerleaders.
Donkeys and cheerleaders.
Donkeys and Cheerleaders.
I like donkeys and cheerleaders.
Donkeys and Cheerleaders has become one of those things where the show is so completely out of control and you don't know what's coming down the pike next. You just kind of go, I don't know, Donkeys and Cheerleaders. I don't know what the fuck is going to happen. Donkeys
You
and
hear the
Cheerleaders.
phrase donkeys and cheerleaders on the show.
Run quickly.
I believe the story goes something along the lines of, now remember I had food poisoning, so my recollection of this is spotty. I was there and then I wasn't there, I was there, I wasn't there. I believe that the idea was to have the executives, much like a high school, have a donkey basketball game. And it was, if I remember correctly, your job to herd some of these fabulously finely trained burros.
Burros.
Really burro
Onto
wrangler.
the field.
Burro Wrangler. And I have a photo of my Facebook page to prove it.
Yeah. Now the cheerleader part comes in, I'm not sure if it actually happened during the show, and I'm not leading up to some interaction between the actual donkeys, whatever they produce, and the cheerleaders, but all of these things were part of the show in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, there was an element to the show.
Now, I don't remember, Doug, were the cheerleaders cheering on the donkeys, or the guys on it? Was there slippage? Was there some sort of, I don't know, foreign matter on the field?
There was a lot of concern about Pepe. Because apparently Pepe, when he would get excited,
Lets it all hang loose.
things could happen. I don't know if I could go much further with this story. I mean, it's a true story. I don't want to
It is a true story. No, it's a true story, and it's not only my story. I feel like I want to share this story because now from my position, I'm backstage, and I don't always have a good view of this. I'm listening to what's going on over headsets while people are alternatively calling shovels stand by, shovels go. And halftime and pee break, and let's get the cheerleaders on the field.
We gotta get Pepe on stage because Pepe's coming up on a bathroom break.
Yeah, but I don't think Pepe ever got his bathroom break before he got on the stage. I think there was some sort of incident. Now, keeping in mind, again, food poisoning. So I think I was feeling some sympathy for the donkeys and what was going on.
Yeah, the whole thing is kind of a blur now because all I remember is me and Pepe. That's all I remember.
Well, I will say one thing. If there's ever a venue that we need to have donkeys and cheerleaders and food poisoning happening in the same place, the lovely LACC would be where you'd want
Is where you want to have it happen.
You want this to go down because apparently you can hose right out the doors to the parking lot.
It's nothing like the Memphis Convention Center where
Not
they
up
did and it was
or
still
down.
on the carpet. They didn't quite get it out the door.
Kids and animals, which folks will of course forget in the heat of we got to do something. They told us to be creative.
Now that it's happening, what do we do?
What do we do? All they know is that well, we've got a troop of donkeys and a troop of cheerleaders and donkeys and cheerleaders. Could be better.
I
think that was classic. I just think that was one of those shows that if you can develop a saying from a particular show that sticks around long enough that you can say donkeys and cheerleaders and people go.
Yeah.
Say no more.
I didn't get to say anymore.
Say no more.
What are you talking about?
And that's what it was.
Now, what about you, sir, or you, sir? Any stories that pop into your head?
Well, when I see you, I think of some of the projects we've done together, and I don't know whether to tell the story about the San Jose Sharks with the anal compulsive producer who did not know his ass from a hole in the ground and drove us all absolutely insane, or the Indian Motorcycle Show, which was simply the show from hell.
Sorry, pick whichever.
It's the only way to describe it. But I think the story I'd like to tell is actually from my days on Broadway, when I was production stage manager on a musical called Shogun, which was a version of James Clavell's novel. And we had one of the great Broadway carpenters named Roy Sears, who's no longer with us, which is why I want to tell this story. When we were in final preview performances in New York, the week before we opened on Broadway, we had just completed a battle scene with 200 people on stage, and they all exited, leaving the lead actor alone on stage. And the scene change was taking place, and in the dark, one of the shoji panels that had flown up got caught in the flies, fell off the trick line, and came in as a sail right into the back of the lead actor's head, who's alone on stage. It could have completely missed him, but instead it hits him in the back of the head, knocks him out, goes all the way down into the orchestra pit, through the pit scrim. The conductor ducks, and it buries itself into the wall behind him.
This is during a live show.
Correct, during the live show.
Oh my.
In the 5 seconds that it takes this to take place in the dark, Roy Sears, the great carpenter, is running past me in the dark before I even know what's going on. And I hear him say on wireless headset, "E-stop, Jimmy, E-stop." So the operators of the automation equipment down in the basement knew to stop everything. I only knew that Roy was yelling and running by me headed for the stage. So I had control of the work lights and turned everything on. So the entire audience saw what had just happened to our lead actor, who was fine. He was only knocked out. He was taken to the hospital. We had paramedics in a minute, and a very brilliant producer who was backstage in 2 minutes to tell me, "Randy, tell the audience the show is over." No hesitation. But to have Roy so heroically basically stop the show because he knew it needed to was an example of what this great road carpenter was able to do. So, in memory of Roy Sears.
Huge story.
I like to tell it.
And
Okay, he was doing the stories.
Oh, well, I could just tag it into yours and start over again.
No, it's
Okay.
anybody jump in. Whenever you got something, just jump in.
Well, we were the discount production of Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. The other one had Alexis Smith on it, who was the name person, and she had actually gone through Miami with the guy that taught me chorus line, and the sound system had failed during their show because the house sound guy cheaped out and went to Radio Shack and bought connectors instead of military spec tip-ring sleek Cat Bay connectors. He went to Radio Shack, so somehow he had the main speakers down front disconnected. But he was mixing from, our guy was mixing from the balcony. He couldn't hear those speakers anyway.
Nice.
So the audience started booing, and because they couldn't hear, and Alexis Smith took it personally, stormed off the stage. And
I paid big money for this show. I want to hear something.
And so they canceled the show, and then the next day, poor Steve's out there trying to figure out what was wrong. And the Minicam news team comes in and puts him on Miami television that night as he's walking around with pink noise and sound level meters and that. And that's when he got off the road. He was like, this is too much.
That's it. I'm done.
There's so many variables you have no control over. Because the sound guy in Miami Beach was a nice guy, but he was incompetent. So I'd rather deal with a jerk that knows his job.
And somebody who's...
But Steve went back to New York, and he actually taught me chorus line on Broadway. So, and he's the one who warned me about, on the road anything can happen.
And does.
And always does.
And always does.
And in Davenport, the thing is, the producers always want to get 8 shows out of you for legitimate theater. It's like a pound of flesh. They can't get 8 shows out of the crew and the actors. And then the actors are always whining about having to move to another city, but they're not putting the setup and taking it down like we are.
They're just whining.
Yeah, they're just whining. So they stopped in the middle of the night. They stopped the crew bus and took the head carpenter and head electrician out and showed them this theater in Davenport, Iowa, because the regular theater was getting refurbished, and they wanted to put the show on and get our 8th show out of us by going to Davenport. And it was old Masonic Auditorium, Shriner Hall. And
trouble right there.
Those little weird rooms back in the corner that things happen.
And our carpenter and electrician said, no, we don't want to go there. This is ridiculous. But they got overruled. And so they had a little elevator. The stage was like on the 3rd level. And the big scenery, they had double doors that just opened up to the void, and they had to hire a crane to bring the scenery up and fling it into the stage. They get it swinging and drop it on the deck. I was like, this is not going well.
Sounds like the Marines.
The hemp, it was a hemp house, and the rope was so rotten that the carpenter wouldn't fly anything.
Nice.
But they found scenery from the Marx Brothers up in the flies. So hadn't been used much. And then they got some truss and 2 genie lifts to put our 1st and 2nd electrics on because they didn't trust anything over the stage. So they just hung the 1st and 2nd electrics over what would have been the orchestra pit, except it was a flat floor. So they were just going to put the orchestra on the floor in front of the audience. And so they're cranking these up, and I was in a separate room with the amp racks working on that. And I heard this tremendous crash. And it was 1,100 pounds of lights and truss. They got one genie lift above the other one, and the span set slipped off, and the whole thing just came crashing to the deck. And one of the locals had been under there a few minutes before, coiling cable, and our electrician said, that's not a really good place to be while they're taking it up. So he missed it. It took 3 hours to get the unistrut untwisted and take all the lights off. So it was a bad omen already. Like this starts.
Don't let this happen to you.
Well, I like what you said about on the road, anything can happen. We've all been on the road long enough to have learned the road teaches us anything can happen. So be ready for it. Even if you think you know what's coming next, think about the dozen different directions it can go in. And if it goes the way you would like it to go, great.
You've won.
Right. But if you're ahead of the game at that point. You've been there before. Absolutely. And you have some idea.
You have to have a fallback plan.
Are you feeling lucky, punk?
Every show.
Well, in that theater, I looked up at the ceiling, and there were cracks all over the ceiling. Water damage had cracked the plaster. And in the show, there's a double-barreled shotgun with blank shells in it.
And Miss Mona comes out to scare off the reporters that are trying to shut down her whorehouse and the rabble-rousers that don't understand the Texas traditions. And so we set up the show and started doing the show, and the bass player thought he was the star of the show. He was the narrator, and he played bass. I forget what the Broadway had. And so he played it really loud, and a lot of heavy vibrations going through the show. And 20 minutes into the show, like a 4 by 6 foot section of the ceiling comes loose and falls into the audience. And the plaster is about yay thick. So, and there was an usher kid, must have been like a 16-year-old kid, usherette, male, female terminology, and it hit him in the shoulder, and the kid was screaming bloody murder. It looked like it had dislocated his shoulder, and nobody did anything. It's like
during the show.
During the show,
part of the show.
And so the show kind of stopped, but the kids sort of run around, and so I got him and took him out to the lobby and handed him off to some paramedics that showed up and sent him on his way. And then we come back, and the show is just sort of in a standstill. The actors are gone, and I'm talking to the stage management, and they won't decide to shut the show down. Because I'm thinking, we haven't had the shotgun blast yet. When Miss Mona comes out with a 12 gauge and shoots that off, the whole damn ceiling could come in.
The rest of the ceiling.
Yeah.
I thought you said you gave up your pyro license.
Yeah, that was before I got my pyro license. And so they're arguing about who's going to pay for it, the promoter versus New York, and New York's not available, and so they're having this huge argument, and I'm out front by myself doing sound. There's nobody coming out onto the stage, much less out where I am, and nobody's talking to the audience. And so first the newspaper reporters show up with their flashes and everything, and I'm the only one there, so they're taking pictures of me. I don't know what happened. I have no idea why that would have happened. Then the minicam news team shows up with the big bright lights, and they're trying to say, "Do you have any idea why the ceiling came in?" It's like, "Oh no." And finally, to the actors' credit, the actors got together and said, "We're not going back on. That's it. Show's over." So the next day was like Cedar Rapids, and first time I got out of the crew bus with a beer in my hand ever. First thing in the morning. And the local people saying, "You guys are pretty crunchy." And we just had dancing here, and they were a real happy crew. Well, dancing was on their way to Hawaii, and so they were happy, and we just had Davenport.
And they didn't have a ceiling.
About colon cleansing products and how this innervates your life and keeps
They have
you moving,
live
so to
action
speak.
demos?
Well, in a manner of speaking. We're getting there. So the whole point of this whole conference was they're going to have 5 different steps. We have to have hydration. You've got to have cleansing. You've got all these different things for it. The hydration they decided to represent. The producer actually sold the column to the client. They did a flash dance routine on stage, rigged the bucket up there, lights above it, pulled the bucket with the girl in the chair, dropped all the water on. Then they did a dance routine with towels around to clean up the water on the deck right away, which was sort of interesting.
Where's the Zamboni?
Where's the Zamboni on the deck? It was one of those. Now, get to the piece de resistance. They've got a ballet dance floor for this. And the producer, he tried to. His initial concept for colon cleansing was he was going to get a giant sonotube. And he was going to have girls in white tutus spinning down them as if they were a pipe cleaner. Now, this didn't quite go over. This did not go over with the producer. The client didn't buy into that. Didn't quite. So he got the next best thing. He put the dance floor in a nice line. He did a whole number out there on the stage and then lined them up. So they're all in their white tutus and everything like that. Lined them up facing the audience. And then they have 2 dancers who are in white leotards with this brown and green spotted wraps around them, and they hit the end of the core, grabbed the first dancer in the core as they're going down the audience, grabbed one in the wrap, and they unspun and they came out white and sparkling clean at the end of it to the audience. This was their representation. I could not believe the producer sold this to the client. Audience, pardon the pun, ate it up. They loved it.
Which pun are you talking about there?
I leave that to your imagination.
Because I think there's 2.
I could not. That was an ode to the creativity of a producer and what a client will buy. I could not believe that one. Yes, it is.
That's pretty classic.
I like the sonotube. Holy.
The sonotube didn't work, but you know that was it. There was another show I did for Netscape back when it was still going, and they had the top 3 guys who started Netscape there. It was like in their heyday, and we were doing a show at the St. Frantic downtown. And we put up a giant paper screen, projected on the screen, and the concept was to have the guys are going to do a video of them walking up to it, and of course they then burst through the screen when they hit their place. So they're all wearing the safari outfits, because Netscape was big into that whole thing. Do you remember this one? So, no? Lion.
Oh, lion. Lions and tigers.
Lions and tigers and Netscape. Oh my!
Got it.
It was one of those. So we have the whole thing. We got smoke backstage. We got lights and effects. Now we had rehearsed the whole thing the night before. Yes, we had a lion. The concept was that they were in the safari outfits, and a lion is part of the whole thing. Didn't rehearse it, of course, with the crowd of people. Now we all know wild animals don't like people that much. The night before, so as we're rehearsing, the lion is sitting in a truck out there in Union Square. Lions don't growl, they don't roar, they bark, basically. So you've got homeless folks going by, like hearing this big truck just shaking with this lion barking away at this whole thing. And they're looking at it and they go, ah, and then move on off.
That was a big dog.
That was a very, very big and not so happy looking dog, kind of hungry. Move forward to the show. We've done the whole thing. It's now the gag is happening. Got smoke machines back there. I've got stagehands back there. Have to page the smoke machines, the whole thing. My electricians, and I hear later they're like up against the wall because they got this lion right next to them. Show happens. All right, cue Netscape. The producers cue Netscape. A lovely Brit has that great accent going along with it. They come on through. They burst through the whole the screen. Come on out. Step out. The lights do their whole dance and cue lion. Cue lion. Where's the bloody lion? Now, the moral of the story is when does a lion take his cue? Any damn time he pleases.
Just like the elephant.
That was what it was.
Anytime he's ready.
Anytime he's ready, and don't be behind him when he is.
Indeed.
It took a while to get him out there. I mean, that's the whole point of the story. It was like, when does a lion take his cue? Whenever he feels like it.
Damn well ready to.
Love that one. Damn well ready to.
Attack the audience.
He was a little antsy going out through the crowd. That was a good one. I like that. That's still one of the ones that sits up there.
I've noticed a theme to these stories.
Anything can happen.
Well, certainly anything can happen, but there's a more specific theme, and it seems to have to do with, I don't want to call it scatological or excretory, but I'm going to close it out. Just one on that theme, sort of. And it's still fairly G-rated. And it's before I got into this business that we're all in, but it was a related business. And I started off being a coordinator in a New York City post-production house. And one of the first things I was asked to do was to come in on a weekend. Big surprise there. Doing affiliate spots. It was affiliates weekend where the big anchors would come in. Tom Brokaw was NBC affiliates week. So my initiation was that these guys said, listen, Tom Brokaw is going to be in here and you're going to be attached to him. So basically the way it works is you do anything he asks you to do. You show him where the bathroom is if you need to. You follow him wherever he goes to make sure he gets what he wants because, he's the big cheese. So anyway, it's fine. So Tom shows up and everything is fairly normal and, he's doing his stuff. He does his affiliates messages. They do all of this thing. It gets down towards the end of the day and we're back in the scheduling office. And somebody whispers in my ear and says, listen, Tom needs to, show me where the bathroom is. Because, he needs to use the bathroom. Now, Tom doesn't say to me, listen, kiddo, I gotta find the bathroom and tell me where the hell it is and clear everybody out of the way. He's pretty self-sufficient. He's been here before. He's been at this rodeo before.
He knows how to find the bathroom.
This is my first rodeo. So they say, listen, he needs to go to the bathroom. So I go up to him and I go, Mr. Brokaw, I understand he needs to go to the bathroom and I'm here to show you where it is. And he kind of looks around and he goes, rolls his eyes and goes, for fuck's sake. So I go, it's this way. And I walk down the hallway with him and we go down this long hallway, Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, and we make a left-hand corner. We get to the bathroom door, and he stops, and he turns around at me, and he goes, from here on in, think I blew And I went 10 sheets of red and realized that, of course, I had been at the end of this long, elaborate thing that
Initiation time.
Initiation, which occasionally still pops up on Facebook every now and again. So there's my
Kid, I got
last
it from here.
contribution, kid. It's okay. I've done this
Don't need to be on the other side of the door.
I've done this before. I don't need you.
That's
Once or twice, maybe.
Once or twice, possibly. So that's.
Were those chaps? Did they have tassels on it for that rodeo ride?
No, but they were going to put some on me. I think I was probably wearing them in the back.
The Reno rodeo with the tassels on the chaps.
Now, speaking of newsmen, I did a show once with Peter Jennings, who was on the stage. It was a Time ABC thing back east, and the theme of the event was obesity in America. And they had a number of different people. In fact, it was the first time I'd seen Dr. Oz. Before he became famous on the Oprah show, he came up and did a bit on our stage. And he brought a bunch of things out onto the stage and demonstrated what obesity does to knees, to livers, to hearts. And at one point he says, and yesterday, this is fresh from yesterday's surgery, we brought out, here's what fat looks like. He brought out a liter of fat in a clear plastic and put it out there on the lectern and talked about it. Well, at the end of his talk, he had placed it next to his right foot by the lectern, finished his speech, and walked off the deck and left the fat behind.
Just even kick it over.
And so Peter Jennings comes out to speak from the lectern, and the rest of us in the booth the entire time going, just don't kick out with your right foot. Just, oh, dear God, please. One of those moments. Because you can see it happening.
Right.
Anything can happen.
And the poor stagehand that would have to crawl out on his belly to clean it up while this is going on.
Clean up on aisle 6.
Give me the squeegee. Give me the squeegee. Give me the squeegee.
It made an impression. I think my favorite rumor about that whole event was a bunch of obese people were rumored to going to protest it, and they were going to break into the event and streak it naked through the live show. They didn't actually materialize along those lines, but that was my favorite rumor from that one.
At least we didn't ask people from the crew to come out and be a bad example.
Before, after.
Yeah, during.
We need to run through here. Could some of you guys, do you mind take a close up? Let's go.
Anything else? Anybody else care to share?
And that's it. That's all my lawyers. That's all my lawyers allowed me to say.
It's not
Randy might have something.
Oh, by the way,
are you sure you want me to tell this story?
Well, for a stage manager and a video director that some of you know who's not here, John Patillo, had the opportunity to stage manage the Reagan funeral at the Western White House. Only by virtue of the fact that he happened to be friends with the head librarian at the library, and when the time came for the funeral, they called John because they knew he was a stage manager. Sure, you bet, national event, I'll be there.
Got it.
So John was stage manager at the Reagan funeral, which was timed to end at sunset, as per Nancy Reagan's instructions. And he was waiting to call the coolest cue ever called in any show. But the minister who was delivering the eulogy was going on and on and on.
get the hook.
And John kept having to say, stand by, stand by, because he knew once he said the magic GO word, 45 seconds later, it was going to happen. So finally the minister wraps up. It's about 1 minute to sunset, and John gets to say, F-16s, go. That is, for me, the coolest cue ever called in any show.
I think you could have a license plate that says F-16 go, and you would absolutely deserve it.
Meanwhile, the pilot just got there cruising around. Yeah, gee, we
Fly by again. Okay, fly by again.
Randy,
That's a
back up
fabulous
for a
story.
second and talk about the GO word and why we say GO. So this could be a preliminary to that story again. So you're telling us about, as a stage manager.
Well, so often in stage managing a show, you want to tell the crew to get ready to take an event, to take a cue, but you don't want them to actually do it. You're just describing to them the warning, the setup for the event.
Get ready.
So my phrase that I borrowed from another stage manager was the magic GO word. Because when I say go is when I want them to execute. And I'm the only one on the headset that gets to use that word. Everybody's trained to wait for the stage manager to say, go.
Oh, yeah.
Then the event happens.
Go? No.
No.
you say no?
No.
No, go.
So, it's
no, go.
Went a rafting with a bunch of friends, river rafting. It was one of the first times I'd actually been out whitewater rafting. We ended up with this guide who didn't know anything about us, thought we were just a bunch of clowns, right? We're out there in the boat, and sure, we're having a good time, being a bunch of crazy people that we do kind of get. But he had a great time with us because every time he told us to do something, we did it. And at the end of the whole thing, it's like, you understand, you give us a cue, we do it. It's no big deal. And then he told his story about how he had problems, because he guides around the rest of the world, did some stuff in Turkey and other places, and he ended up with a boat full of Russians. And they'd sit there, and they would drink their vodka on all the breaks, and they'd smoke the entire time while they're in the rafting, and they wouldn't row. And when you whitewater rafting, you've actually got to all be together as a team and go places. And he'd asked a friend, says, you might have a problem with these guys, and if you do, this is what you got to tell them. Spitty looked black. And they all went, which I've asked a number of my Russian friends, and it roughly translates into forward or row, bitch. Yeah, pretty much. It was one of those things I think about sometimes when we have one of those shows where you're waiting for more rowing.
Vodka, cigarettes, more rowing.
We're coming up to the bend in the river. We need you to help us.
Oh, yes, one bit.
You don't want to hit that big rock. So what do you tell people as far as the NO word, as far as not using that?
I have learned not to use that word on headset anymore. If somebody asks me a question in which that is the answer, I use the word negative.
Well, we were doing Die Hard 2 down in the desert with a blowing up the 747, and we had smoke and big helicopter flybys, and the whole runway's all lit up because our hero Willis, lights the stream of fuel after he's pulled open the fuel cap on the wing, and the plane's taking off, and the fuel leaks up to the plane. And Mythbusters kind of blew that apart.
Wonderful bit of theater.
But we've got all these smoke machines going on trailers. We're running around and throwing smoke everywhere, and there's a helicopter above us, and these monster V8 fans. And the stage manager was telling me no smoke, but I'm hearing go smoke. And finally somebody came out and grabbed me and said, no smoke! You're going to have to...
What are you stupid?
Do you have any idea how close those sound?
So this is on the radio with all of this going on.
Sure.
I mean, there were the fan guys actually bailed off the fans because the helicopter came in so low. They just jumped off the fan.
Run away!
No smoke.
It could have been,
Could
have been the Twilight Zone again, where we cut off the heads of the principal.
Use the word negative.
Yeah.
You get a lot of different surprises on the road.
Well, the people that count down tape, too.
All done?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. No, you don't say go.
No.
Yeah.
It's like,
all right.
you can't do that.
All good?
Thanks, you guys.
You're welcome.
We're fired.